Okay.
Hello and welcome back to the main stage at day 2 of Social Intelligence Tech Demo Day. Of course, I'm Dr. Gillian Nate, and now I am joined by Alexander Polonsky from Bloom. Now, Bloom may be an organisation that you've not heard of before, so stay tuned for what they're about to demonstrate, because I think you'll find it very interesting. I know that we have quite a lot of more advanced social data analysts here, so this could be something definitely for you. So Alistair, without further ado, I am going to hand everything over to you. I'm going to turn off my camera and my sound, so you're in full control, but I am sitting here in the background.
All right, so you can see my presentation then?
Yes, we've got your presentation, and
Great.
before I forget as well, please put your questions for Alexander in the stage chat, and I will get to you. I will get your questions to you once Alexander's finished his presentation. I've lost your video, Alexander. Are you still there?
Yeah.
To go.
Strange.
Do you want to go onto your video, or are you going to present with it off?
I don't mind if it's off. Yeah.
It's see down the bottom where you've got the screen share. To the left of that, it should be you. Oh, Lindsay can say she can see the video. That's so weird. Can everybody?
I mean, I can see it, but
I can't see you. You're just a dead screen. Everybody, it's only me that can't see you, so I'll shut up. And allow everybody's going crazy for it now. And good luck. I will be here when you finish your presentation. Bye bye.
Okay, thanks, Jillian. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Bloom presentation. So Bloom is a provider of social intelligence technology and services, and I'm Alexander Polonsky, its co-founder and VP of research. So we're based in France, and while we already have some representation in a couple of other countries, we're not widely known outside of France so far, and this is really our first foray on the international stage, so to say. However, we have already worked with many global brands in most of the world's top languages. At Bloom, we analyze social media as a virtual representation of human society. So, it's pretty complex, which is very seriously. But it means that we don't analyze just brands' owned media. We look at entire market sectors such as food or fashion, for example. But we can also zoom in on key components at any level of detail. So you can look at a single account, document, or an interaction. Now, such an analysis can be used for a wide variety of applications, naturally. So at the Bloom, we've only selected and focused on those that we found to bring the most value. I'll illustrate one of such use cases in the demo shortly. However, with our focus on quality, the quality of data analysis and visualization. Therefore, before demonstrating what we do, I'd like to take a few minutes to explain how we do it. Because when it comes to data analysis, how is equally as important as what. The first phase of social media analytics is getting the right data for analysis, which means making sure the data is as complete and as clean as possible. As they say, garbage in, garbage out. As many of you know, when it comes to social media, this can be a very challenging problem. That is why putting in place a data quality control process is essential if you want to have confidence in your insights. At Bloom, we have developed a unique approach based on the new artificial intelligence graph-based inference. Now, as you know, there's a big hype nowadays about machine learning. Some of it is well-deserved, some of it isn't. But either way, learning is just one type of intelligence. Inference is another. It's been so far pretty overlooked by the industry, and at Bloom, we're really pioneering this approach. Now, inference means deducing new knowledge from existing knowledge. So it's something pretty intuitive. That's what all investigators do. Panama Papers was discovered thanks to inference. And this is, it's a great approach to really understanding what's going on. And so, the point here is that we use social and semantic inference to increase by 1 or 2 orders of magnitude the amount of relevant data that we capture in comparison to traditional search, depending on the data source. We also use it to help structure this data, as we'll see in the demo. Now, semantic inference is the process of query refinement using automatically generated semantic term graphs. The graphs are constructed by extracting the most important terms and term coherence relations from the initial data set. These graphs can then be used to identify new relevant terms to add to the initial query, as well as potential keyword ambiguities to be removed from the query. Now, social inference, on the other hand, follows through conversational links between various social media documents, such as comments, shares, and references. These links to capture entire contextualized conversations as opposed to disconnected documents. The vast majority of the documents we capture this way do not contain any query keywords, and yet they are key to understanding the conversations we're analyzing. Just as the data quality is key to getting the right insights, so is the quality of its analysis. The math in social media analysis may be not trivial, but yet it's critical to have a basic understanding of it in order to judge its relevance. Without this, you can never really have confidence in the outcome. This point is really the elephant in the social analytics room, as far as we're concerned. Here are just a few common problems to watch out for. So 1 + 1 is not necessarily 2 if these come from different social media, since the collection sampling rates between the social media platforms are often drastically different. If a trend is measured in percent, it's most likely unique. It's a trend of a trend. If the classification precision is below 95%, your results will likely not be statistically significant. And making strategic decisions based on black box algorithms without verification is plain a roulette with strategy. A big advantage of graph-based inference over machine learning, even though they're complementary, is that it's completely, and these are fundamental properties that you need for reliable insights. Now that we've covered the how, we can jump into the demo. I'll show you the technology we use to help a fashion brand to become more sustainable. In particular, we've helped the brand to discover new opportunities, prioritize risks, and strengthen competitive advantages. So I'll switch to the demo. Now, so let me tell you a bit about how we start projects. So basically, here we analyzed sustainable fashion, which is a market sector, you could say. And in order to understand what's going on in this market sector, so we did this analysis in English only for this demo, but actually the actual project on this topic was analyzed in multiple languages. In order to do this, and also, by the way, here we cover 4 different social media platforms, the main ones, so Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. And so the way we approach this is we start with some hypotheses about what sustainable fashion is. We start with a few queries, sustainable fashion, ecological fashion, environmental clothing, whatever comes to mind. When we look at some content, on the subject. So we start with some initial hypothesis, but staying very broad, and then we do a first run of analysis. And what happens after that is the platform generates fully automatically a semantic graph that summarizes the millions of conversations and interactions that we've collected. So what you're seeing here is a summary, a term graph where you have the node or the terms and the relations or co-occurrence relations between these terms. The most important ones, both the terms and the relations, based on multiple criteria of importance, and also contextual relevance. Now, the important thing here is that it's not based on any kind of pre-existing lexicon. So that all this information is fully data-driven. These terms are fully automatically extracted from content with no prior bias, generic lexicons. So once we've done that, what we look at are, so in yellow, you see the terms that are already in the query. So we're not starting from scratch here to for illustration purposes. And the blue terms are not yet in the query. And so we can see, what's going on here, and quickly spot other significant terms that we may want to add to the query. So, for example, we see vintage, or we see eco-friendly, or some other things. So if we zoom in a bit more, those handmade, for example, a hashtag, etc. Now, these things, it's not something we could have ever really thought of from the beginning. Impossible to think of all the possible keywords or hashtags that are relevant for a specific market segment. So, and it's certainly not something that out-of-the-box classifier can deliver for you. So it requires some work. There's no way around this, because no machine can automatically decide what is or isn't strategically significant for a specific project. And so here we see, but however, the role of the machine and of artificial intelligence, so to say, here is to support the human expert in their work. And so here, this graph really helps us to identify relevant terms to add to the query, which is essential because queries are the only way we can really interact with social media platforms. So here we, for example, we can click on the vintage word, verify that actually it is relevant, and I'm not talking about vintage cars for some reason or whatever. And look at top documents, and we see that indeed, they're talking about vintage, second-hand clothing, etc. We can scroll through a few to validate that we're bringing definitely a lot more signal than noise. And once we validate the term, we simply drag and drop it to the query to enrich it. And so this is how we're able to enrich the initial queries. We're able to also detect eventual noise if there is any. Which is often found on the periphery of these graphs, because basically the way to interpret them is that the center of the graph is the main context. It's the core of the conversation, and on the periphery, we may see some terms bringing noise. We can zoom in and see, whether there's this cluster here that maybe is a bit noisy or not. It doesn't seem to be. But anyway, so pretty quickly we can validate that on the one hand, the data set we've collected does not contain significant noise, and that we haven't missed significant signal. Adjust the queries and reiterate the data collection based on this new information. Now, we also use the same approach to structure the information, so we can detect different topics of conversation once we've finalized the perimeter of the query and the community we want to analyze. We can then find sub-communities by looking at different clusters of terms, and then creating queries that formalize sub-communities. So we can, for example, create a query around the environment by looking at all the terms that are related to this, etc. Now, so once we've done this, we end up with our sustainable fashion community that's structured. So, which means that it contains different sub-communities that describe the main topics of conversation that we've observed happening in fashion. Now, these are the ones that we've identified as being strategically relevant and significant, and we can rank them according to, so there are so many different indicators that you can use to analyze communities, and it's very easy to get lost in all that. And so what we've tried to do at Bloom is to create a synthetic indicator that allows us to have a bird's eye view on what is really important. And so we have this single rank called Power Index that ranks these subcommunities in order of importance, mixing at the same time strong and weak signals here. So it has 4 components that are aggregated on an Olympic kind of Olympic model of scoring, where we have basically the number of active actors in the community. So it's not just authors, but it's actually all the actors interacting in the community as well. We have the engagement rate, which shows the potential of the community. So the community, like for example, fair trade, might not have that many actors interacting yet, but it may just be because in the period of analysis, this community wasn't stimulated enough. So there may well be a dormant community of much larger size that when stimulated by an event or a media publication on the topic, actually reacts quite strongly. And we can see that the engagement rate of fair trade is actually pretty much equivalent to that of slow fashion. And then we can look at the motivation. So basically the way that the actors, how many times on average do the actors interact in this community? Is it just once and then they don't come back, or are they interacting multiple times? And also the emotional intensity of their interactions. And so basically this index measures, on the one hand, quantitative aspects and also qualitative aspects to say not just how many people are involved, but to what extent are they involved in these communities. And so this allows us to prioritize the most important topics and also zoom in on them to see to find out more. So for example, we could go boycott sounds potentially dangerous for a brand, so we're going to zoom in and see what this is about. So here we can see that, well, actually it's relatively small in size. The engagement ratio is not that big, although the implication, the involvement of the actors that are there is relatively high. So it could be a weak signal of danger potentially. We can see that the timeline, well, sort of rising here, especially of the reactions. You can see with the naked eye. And we can zoom in on the emotions that are involved. So here we have not just sentiment, but we have specific emotions that are being detected using lexicons, multilingual lexicons that we have developed over many years that are highly precise. We don't try to capture all the emotions, but we want to make sure that the ones we do capture are captured with a high degree of precision to make sure that the results are statistically significant. And here we see that we have some other controls to make sure that to get rid of noise and stuff. But we can see that actually, strangely enough, boycott is generating quite a bit of positive emotions, probably because of actually people are being enthusiastic about the boycott, and also obviously there is some anger involved and quite a bit of anticipation here. So these are quite relatively strong emotions. And we can also look and here on the right, the term graph that we saw before got filtered by this specific subcommunity, and we can see the terms that are relevant to this specific subcommunity to quickly understand what actually this boycott is really about. And we can see here a little cluster of terms talking about basically the Chinese boycotting Western brands because of all the uproar linked to the Uyghur camps and the exploitation of forced labor. Here we have some discussions about boycott of brands that are mistreating animals, and then there is another topic here. So we can basically qualify pretty quickly what this is about to judge whether this is relevant or not. So once we have this overall view on sustainable fashion, understand the main sub-communities, what are their drivers, we can then go back and so we've identified just 4 brands that were pretty actively discussed in this community. We've anonymized them here, but we can go and compare then the different communities that are discussing brands in the context of sustainable fashion. And so here we're comparing the 4 brands using the same power index approach. We can see which brand is stronger in a specific in sustainable fashion in relation to others. So we can see that brand C has a bigger community, but actually the engagement rate is very low. The motivation is not that high, whereas the brand A has a slightly smaller community, but that is much more involved. And also we can see actually not that surprising, the brand C is, well, it's actually in time the impact of the brand in a sustainable fashion is dwindling, because you can see that it's not maintained by people being involved sufficiently. And we can quickly qualify the main emotions in each community. You can see that in this brand, for example, there's quite a bit of disappointment. And also very quickly identify the top risks and top opportunities for each brand, which measured according to our risk and opportunity indexes. And then, so we can then actually zoom in into the brand to understand a little bit more about it. We can see the timelines of publications versus engagement. We can see the different emotion distribution and more of the risks and opportunities for the specific brand. So we can also have a different view, a comparison view, that it focuses on specific sub-communities that we've identified earlier, to see which of the brands are how they're positioning themselves in relation to these sub-communities. So Marc, by the way, is a brand in French, just in case you're confused. What's happening here is that we see that the brand A is expressing itself primarily on these 3 topics, brand B on these 4 topics, etc. And you can see their interest that has been generated by their community. So this is basically reactions to the brand's posts, is what we're seeing. Owned content here, and we can compare this so between the different brands, but also with interests of the consumers. So we can see that the consumers are interested primarily in the environment, for example, whereas this is not a type of priority of communication interest in relation to the brands here. So in the environment, they're not doing that great, except for the brand B. So we can see the synchronization that these brands have in relation to consumer interest. And we can see that, well, actually, there are tons of topics on which they are not communicating sufficiently here. So brand C is only communicating with organic materials, but okay, this is one of the interests, but there are so many other things that they're missing out. And so all this insight allows us, pretty quickly get an idea about how, what are the main issues in sustainable fashion, and how the brands are comparing in relation to each other in terms of, their visibility, their impact in the sustainable fashion, and also in terms of their positioning in relation to specific sub-communities. And so once we understand all that, then we can ask her, well, what do we do about it, right? And so in this situation, we can really understand what is working, what is not working, by looking at top content, but also at top actors. So what we're seeing here is actually a social graph this time on Instagram. Now we do social graphs on all the platforms we analyze, and in this case we could look separately on each of the platforms. And by the way, one thing that we've realized for sustainable fashion, for example, is that Twitter data is really pretty poor on this topic. I mean, there's very little strategic insights just by looking at Twitter. So here, really looking at all these major media, social media is essential to understand what's going on. So by looking at this influence dynamic network for each sub-community, we can easily devise a strategy of communication also. So when we talk about the positioning, it's not just a communication strategy, right? It's a positioning in much broader context in terms of business strategy, in terms of product strategy, packaging, marketing, and communications. So this allows us basically to to go all the way to the communication strategy, understand the influence dynamics, understand the hidden agendas of the main influencers that are involved, and really devise not just the overall strategy, but also the tactical plan of action. So I'm realizing I'm done here. When I did the dry run, I finished just in time, and second time around it was faster. So I think I'm actually finished with the demo, and here's our contact information if you want to ask us questions, after this event is finished.
Brilliant.
And I can take questions from Jillian and the audience.
Great. Can I ask you to stop sharing your screen, Alexander?
Oh yeah, sure.
Thank you.
Let me see.
Just so everyone can see us.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. That was great. Did you enjoy that?
Me?
Yes.
Yes. Sure.
What about everyone else? Now, we've not had lots of questions come in yet, but sometimes it takes everybody a little minute just to get warmed up. So let me start with a few questions
Sure.
for you. Can you tell me a bit more about the data sources that you cover in your analysis?
Right. So our strategy was really from the very beginning focused on the quality of the whole process, and so we didn't want to, get all the possible data sources right away because we knew we couldn't manage quality collection and treatment of all these things right away. So we've focused on the main social media platforms, and we're really we're working hard to get it right because it's not at all obvious, and it's something that is dynamically changing all the time, as you all know. And so we focused on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, but we've also all thanks to our social gist partner in particular, we're able to get data for Weibo until recently. now it's going to be another challenge, and also we're able to integrate WeChat.
Okay, great.
But when we collect these data sources, we're careful to not lose all the links that are referenced in these data sources. So all the web links that are referenced, we capture, and we collect also data from those URLs.
Okay, thank you. Can I just ask, if you have a question, please do pop it into the chat and we will get round to it. You've all been so conversational kind of coming this morning, so please do put them in there. And 1 second, something's just pinged on another place. No. Okay, I will get to them. So please use the stage chat and we will be able to answer your questions.
And by the way, just to add one more thing is that we are constantly, obviously, working to add new sources. So at the moment, we're working on TikTok, for example.
Okay, great. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? That's a topic that's come up in conversation quite a lot over the past 2 days.
Well, one thing I can say is that one thing that needs to be really clarified once and for all is, say that we analyze a source or not, doesn't make much sense. Is that there's so much degree of freedom there between having a source and not having a source that you really need to be quite specific as to what exactly you're doing there for each source. So, for example, when we say we analyze Facebook and Instagram, it means that, or YouTube and Twitter, etc., we also capture all the relevant comments on this media, for example, which is really super important because comments really are key for understanding what's going on. And we capture also all the relations. So as you see those social graphs, we couldn't have constructed without capturing all the social interaction relations that we can, and inferring those that we can. So for TikTok, it's the same thing. So there are some companies offering TikTok access, but with no comments. So that is not going to work for us. So we're looking for ways of getting comments on TikTok as well, and that's going to take quite a bit of time.
Yeah, I would say so, definitely. But we know that it's something that people are asking for because it's come up in conversation quite a lot over the past 2 days. So let's talk a bit about your data collection. How is it you're collecting and processing your data? Is it real time?
Yeah. So another thing that, basically the position and the quality has forced us to make certain sacrifices. So the breadth of coverage is one. The real time is another, in the sense that what we really, our positioning is in strategic insights, and we don't believe that strategic insights are coming in real time. It's like The Economist versus daily news. The Economist publishes a magazine once a month in order to really have deep insights, well structured, well analyzed, to be able to make strategic decisions. Based on daily news, you can't really do that so much. You do need both, and they're complementary things. But we're doing projects with daily updates. That's about, we're comfortable with that rate, and we don't see it for the use cases that we are covering. We don't see a huge demand for faster. Also.
Okay, that's interesting. So let's pick up on your use cases then. What use cases are you working on just now?
Right. So, like I mentioned before, we're focusing really on strategy things. So, positioning is definitely one of those. But also, we're looking at sometimes we go a little further than just pure strategy. We're looking at tactical planning as well sometimes. So we're going to precision marketing domain, where we know the target that in principle that we want to address, and then we help brands to figure out how to optimize that by structuring further this tribe or whatever community that they're interested in specifically, whether in the context of a specific interest, for example, in the context of the brand, or outside of the context of the brand. That's another use case. Another one is analyzing campaigns. So that's something that we do as well, bringing in insights that are not readily available from platform analytics. So basically analyzing comments. That's our main added value there.
Okay, brilliant.
Yeah.
You mentioned a little bit about audience analysis there. Can you tell us what types of insights that you're drawing out from that?
Right. So basically, we're looking mostly at what we call active audience. So audience that's actually interacting with the brand or its content. So the followers, for example, is something that we haven't really focused on very much, because we find that it's a lot less reliable as an audience, simply because, well, some of them may be dead, some of them may be, don't look at their social media anymore. It's very difficult to really know for sure which followers are relevant and which followers are not, and also why they really followed the brand. So very difficult to understand that. Whereas from people that are interacting with the brand and brand content, you can really have a much better idea who these people are, what they're interested in. And then, like I said, we go beyond the context of the brand. We basically collect data around those accounts when we can. Obviously, on Facebook you can't do that, but on some of the media we can. And then we gather what they're interested in outside of that context, and then we apply the same approach that I just showed you to those conversations, to structure those main interests. And these are things, once again, that are purely data driven. So it's not based on any kind of taxonomy. So it's which frankly we haven't found to be very useful in our experience. And we're really capturing the terms that are used by the people at the moment that they're being used. And once again, every time when we categorize a specific subcommunity, we go beyond the keywords by capturing all the conversations around, not just the keyword-based documents. And so once we structured the whole thing, we applied the same indicators that I showed earlier. So emotional analysis, power index to detect, which are the things that are the more important ones, influence dynamics to identify which are the actors that would be interesting to target in terms of campaigning, and things like that. And when we do that, these indicators are not the same as you see elsewhere. It's something that we've developed, in a way that's been, let's say, we don't have too many indicators, but the ones we do have, we've worked on quite hard to get right. And so, influence, for example, once again, we look at different aspects of influence. So it's not just how many likes people got, but what impact did they really have in the community, and what impact can they have in the community in the future. So for us, a like is not the same thing as a share. Those things are don't have the same impact. And also we capture direct impact, also indirect impact. So if an influencer produced a document that's generated a huge conversation, well, this whole conversation with all the engagement around this conversation is part of the impact that they've generated. It's not just the post.
Yeah, I think that's something that's quite forgotten about if we're doing like keyword searches and things, that you can pick up all of these posts that have that keyword in it, but then there's streams of conversation that's happening before and after that sometimes gets forgotten about. There has been a question that's come in, and Eric, can you just clarify if this question is for me or if this question is for Alexander? That would be awesome. Thank you so much. While we're waiting on that, because it does take about 7 seconds for that to come through, let's talk a bit about, we've been talking a bit about trends and being able to identify trends versus noise. And I think that's an important topic to talk about. Can you tell me a little bit more about how your approach to that?
Yeah, so trend analysis in social media is not trivial. It's not like a common time series that contains signal and noise. Actually, in social media, there's no noise. Everything that we capture are real interactions. However, what is important to understand is that the signal that we're capturing has two different components. One component that has some patterns that we could capture. So patterns, for example, related to different calendar cycles. But it also has a big component that is pure chaos. Now, not the same thing as noise, but it's chaos in a sense that what we're seeing is a reflection of a society. Some complex. Things happen in it all the time in a way that's completely unpredictable. So somebody who says that they can predict 6 months in advance what's happening on social media, they're being psychic in my mind. Because we cannot possibly predict that. I mean, coronavirus is just one of the examples that has broken all the machine learning models that are based purely on black box approaches, simply because change now. We cannot, if we don't understand what's going on, we cannot properly adjust our models. In it, what is really key is to be able to dissociate those two components. So dissociate the patterns that you can capture from the chaos, and address them in a different way, because both of them are important, but they cannot be mixed together into a single thing. So this is what I can say in this very short.
Yeah, no, that is fine. So let me ask you Eric's question. He's saying, in yesterday's chat, you mentioned looking beyond keywords into the contextual conversations in threaded discussions. Can you follow up on that and the implication for analysts' deliverables?
The implications are huge. I mean, it's something that just changes everything. I mean, if you don't do that, you get so. And like I said, I mean, in terms of volume, this is just incomparable. The volume of documents that we capture through conversations is, like I said, order or two magnitude bigger than the volume you can just capture from keywords. And so obviously it changes all the insights, all the statistics that you generate. Also, it's not just the quantity here, but it's also the nature of the content is very different. So the things you see in comments is not what you see in posts. So yeah.
Okay, great. Eric, does that answer your question? And if anyone else has any questions, please do come on. We've got a few minutes left for Alex's session. So can I ask you, Alexander, in terms of the projects that you're running just now for clients, what's the most innovative things that you're doing?
Well, actually, quite a few innovative things at the moment. Playing around with quite a few things. For example, prediction models for revenue, based social media, advanced alerting functionality that could automatically detect phase transitions in the time series. An automated risk detection model.
Okay.
Yeah, so quite a few things.
Okay, great. No, that's perfect. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that. So Eric's saying that you've partially answered his question, but he's going to follow up with you in the expo. Just to let everyone know that the expo is now open. You can meet Alexander there. There's also other expo booths, and of course there is our Q&A surgery, which is run by 10 Beer Group. So please swing by there after here and get your other questions answered, because I know that not everybody likes to ask questions in public like this. So I would imagine there'll be a few people following up with you after the session, Alexander. So if there's no more questions, you got any final words, Alexander?
Any final words? Let's see. I didn't expect to have final words because I thought we would be running over time. But well, I guess the main takeaways, which is that if you don't control the quality in your social media analytics, you're taking huge risks.
Yes.
And it needs to be controlled both on the part of the data and the part of the analysis. And this is something that is not trivial to do well. So obviously, you can do some of it manually, but it's very time consuming and certainly incomplete. And manual manual participation in this process is obviously a must, but you need to be assisted by some kind of automated control methods. And basically, in order to get that right, what you need to do is do some sanity cross checks. Like for example, if you're working with a machine learning model, which is a black box, well, you have to cross-check it with some search queries, for example, to make sure that what it's capturing is relevant, and the other and also vice versa. I mean, it's what it's leaving out is equally as important. And also, I would strongly encourage, in terms of analytical quality check, get third-party opinion from mathematicians. Find some real mathematicians that will tell you, whether these things make sense or not. Because frankly, this is not just specific about the social analytics. It's something that I see across data analysis field in general. There's it's hugely hyped. It's hugely varied. It's like as though at the moment you see everything there, and to be able to tell difference between something that makes sense, it doesn't make sense, you need real expertise, and it's something that's really not easy to come by. So anyway.
Brilliant. No, this was excellent. So thank you, everyone. And thank you very much, Alexander. That was a great journey into Bloom. If you have any questions, additional questions for Alexander, you will be able to find them in the expo session, which is now open. The next sessions that are coming on, so the expo is open until 2 p.m. BST. Then after that, at 2 p.m., we'll be running a panel session, which is about analysing social data off platform, which will be available on the main stage. And if you're booked into any of the workshops, you will access those via the sessions tab on the left-hand side but it won't become available until 1:50. Oh no, they're at 3 o'clock. Sorry, that's not until 3. Please excuse me, I'm getting all my timings mixed up. So I will see everybody back here on the main stage at 2 p.m. But hop into the expo just now and get chatting to Alexander and his team from Bloom. Thank you massively, Alexander. It was great to have you with us today.
Thank you very much, Gillian, as well.
He's even managed to make it when he's on his vacation. So yeah, dedication there. But thank you very much, and I'll speak to you soon. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks a lot. Bye.